No, no, I just didn't want you to start any business yet.
Okay.
Let me make sure that it's good and then you can
I just
officially
saw
begin.
I just saw a prompt that said meeting is being live streamed.
Yeah. Okay. So we should be good now. All right. Again, thank you all for being here today. If those of you who are joining virtually and those of you who made the trip to Frankfurt, appreciate it. I know it's been a really crazy week. Everybody I look at is like just dragging. It's just that time of year. So I know that you all had to make this a priority with the busyness that's going on in your life. So we have a guest today. Lindsay Case is here with us. She is a member of the CPE board. And she's also a high school teacher. And so I'll let her give a little bit of a more introduction for you all. She's here today to kind of see, just be a guest and kind of see what the advisory council is all about. And I think it's great to have some CPE board representation just kind of in the room as we have our conversation. So Lindsay, if you want to just give a quick introduction, we welcome you today.
Hello, I hear about dual credit a lot through CPE world. I actually teach high school. I teach aviation. I'm a pilot, a basic ground instructor. I also teach accounting and business, personal finance, and all those classes. So I'm a numbers person. So I hear Chris is coming with some data later. I have no doubt.
He is. Yeah, he is. He is.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah, Lindsay, we have Angie and Sandra who's on screen, who are high school counselors. And so they also work a lot with advising students about dual credit. And so we're really happy to have, they're pretty new members to the council as well. So if y'all don't mind, I'd like to just go around and just give a quick introduction so that Lindsay is aware of who's in the room too. Okay, so we'll start with you, Harmony.
Good morning. I'm Harmony Little, Associate Vice President of Teaching, Learning, and Student Transformation at KCTCS, and supporting our community colleges and acting as a liaison with our partners and school partners and KDE and everybody else as a part of the region.
And I'm Angie White. I'm a counselor at Barron County High School. I have been in charge of dual credit for many, many years, so I've seen lots of changes over the years. So most all of them are great things that have happened. I'm Becky Gilpatrick. I'm Director of Student Aid at KIA. So I am the person behind the Dual Credit Scholarship and all the things attached to getting that money where it needs to go.
She has a fun job.
But job security.
Yeah, I'm Joel Pace. I direct the Eagle Scholars Program at Morehead State University and am representing four-year publics.
Lindsay, you know, I work here at CPE.
And I'm Kara Schauner. I'm Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs at Jefferson Community and Technical College in Louisville.
All right, so we'll go up to the screen. I'm just going to go in the order in which I see you all. So James, you're at the top.
Cool. Hi, everyone, or hello, I'm James Ketchen. I am the Director of Dual Credit and Transfer Pathways at Thomas More University. I am the private four-year representative on the advisory board.
Jamie, you're next.
Can you hear me? Sometimes I have my speakers. Good morning. My name is Jamie Griffey, and I am the Director of Dual Credit Services at Hazard Community and Technical College. And also in my department is the Upper Bound Math Science program. So that's also within my department. And I represent the southeastern most part of the state.
All right, John.
Well, good morning. Yeah, sure. Good morning. My name is John Pace. I'm with the Kentucky Department of Education, Office of Career and Technical Education, and I represent KDE, Career and Technical Education interests here, and I oversee post-secondary and career-ready initiatives.
And Sandra.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Hancock, and my job description has changed since we last met. I'm now the academy coach for the new Christian County High School that will be opening in August of 26. But I have 1 foot in student transition and 1 foot in academy coach right now as we make that transition. So good morning.
Exciting. So we got a dream team here on our Dual Credit Advisory Council. So thank you all for taking a minute to do that. I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes to let you all share. I know in the personal world, Becky has some really good news to share with us. Becky, you want to brag for a minute?
Sure. I got a nice treat on Halloween. My first grandchild was born. I've got a little girl. Her name's Savannah. She lives in Indianapolis. That's the only drawback. She's about 2 hours away from me, but that's not stopping anything. So I am now Savannah's Nana. And loving every minute of that. So
we've got to get her a t-shirt that says Savannah's Nana. That's really cute. Does anybody
Yeah.
else have any personal good news that you want to share with us?
Well, sure. Speaking of grandchildren,
Okay.
grandchild number 3 was recently baptized in Dallas, and I was able to get away from Moorhead and fly out to Dallas for the baptism. And because I'm a deacon in my church, I got to participate. That was the best part.
That's awesome. John, congratulations. I didn't know you had grand number 3.
I know. It's crazed.
Yeah. Congratulations. Anybody else? All right. How about any professional or dual credit related updates in your world? Does anybody have anything you want to share?
We had our SAC-COC 5th year visits this
You
week.
did this week.
Today.
Yeah. Okay. How's that going, Kara?
Yay!
I'm like, as soon as I get out of this meeting, I'm gonna text our SACS liaison from the college and say, how did it go? Please tell me they didn't give us any dual credit related recommendations, because I don't know that I have room on my plate. But I think it went okay.
Yeah.
Congrats, Kara. Woo!
Yeah, Kara was not at the Access Summit because of the SAC-COC visit, and so I was thinking about you, wondering how that was all going.
They had, and I didn't know like what Monday was actually going to end up being, because they can change their mind when they're here.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, I don't
Yes.
think I need to be in Lexington because I don't know what they're gonna do.
Is this your first go round in this role, right?
Yes.
In the new role.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And we've not had to have a 5th year visit in the past because we didn't add that many sites. It's once you add more than 5 sites that you have to have a 5th year on site.
Okay.
So we've never had that.
That's
So,
typical
you
for just about
survived.
all of our colleges
Yeah.
because of the explosion of dual
Dual
credit.
credit,
Almost everybody
right.
ends up with a 5-year visit only because of dual credit.
In prisons, it was prisons.
Oh, yeah,
this time
prison
too.
population starting
So,
to be too.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, but it's like, yeah, it was like, I don't know what to expect, but it was okay. I think it went okay.
Okay. Good to hear that. Anybody else?
That little graphic here that we put together for our district.
Uh-huh.
So academic dual credit courses, we have 350 seats this semester for fall. So a total of 1,050 college hours for our students.
Wow.
And 110 technical dual credit seats. So
Awesome. Angie, will you share that with me? Okay, and then I can push it out so that you all can see the graphic.
I don't know if this is something to celebrate, but dual credit enrollment at KCTCS keeps on growing.
It does. It does. Yeah. Chris is going to share some of the explosion in dual credit enrollment. And so that's a good, it's a good thing as long as our attainment goal keeps going up, and it is. So that's good news.
Well,
we're just going to celebrate our 3rd largest dual credit class in university history.
Kudos to the
Yeah.
Eagle Scholars Program.
Very good.
Yay.
James, did I hear you needing?
Uh,
were you
That
getting
was,
ready to say-
that,
Oh, John,
that was,
I'm sorry.
that was me.
Okay, go
Well,
ahead.
I actually just want to congratulate CPE for a wonderful inaugural Kentucky Student Access Summit this year. My partner in crime in the Office of Special Education Early Learning, he and I got to present on CTE and how it is a benefit to students with special needs. And it was well received, but I went to a lot of other professional development and saw a wonderful student panel talk, and it was just an awesome conference. And kudos to all of you at CPE who put on this amazing conference. It was great.
Thanks,
Sorry
John.
I missed you there. There was also an amazing dual credit panel there.
There was. Pretty good.
Yes, there was.
We were at the same time as John's.
That's
So-
why we didn't see this.
Yeah.
I was like, how did I
Yeah.
not Tom's, that's
We,
why.
we had to divide our forces, to,
They
you know,
shouldn't
divide
put
and
us up
conquer.
against each other though, John. I mean, Tom.
Well, no, because I was covering dual credit for, you know, CTE. So, you know, we have to, you know, divide and conquer.
We're still having a technical issue, so it says it's me, but Kate, you're seeing Cameron on the screen, right?
Hello.
Are we good?
Can you all hear better now online?
Okay. We're getting head noise. All right, good deal.
Could you try speaking anyone?
Good morning.
Oh, there we go. Much better. Thank you.
Much better.
Thank you, Cameron.
Yes, ma'am.
And I didn't even know there was a problem, so that's magic. Yeah, I was gonna say, when I heard you all talking about the sessions and how you all, you know, there's never a perfect way to do that, so you can get to everything you want to see. I know Dawn just agonized over how to organize those sessions and, you know, keep the day moving along, but give people a lot of good options. So she was trying to think about, well, what about our K-12 people here? And what about our post-secondary people there? And do we have a good mix of CTE and gen ed and all those kinds of things? So I did feel like it was a really good day, not perfect, but a really good day. I don't know about you all, but I was really inspired by the Kentucky Teacher of the Year. If you ever get a chance to hear her,
Yep.
amazing. What an amazing story she has.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Smith, is that right? Is Smith, is that her last
She's from
name?
Eminence.
Yeah. She's from
Oh,
Eminence.
okay.
I'm pretty sure.
That's what I was
middle
curious. I was
school.
like, oh, I gotta know who it is, because maybe I know. this
Middle
person.
school
Yeah.
teacher. She
Mhm.
was just chills.
Agreed. And I think all of the sessions were recorded, so you can
Okay.
probably see her plenary. She kicked the day off. Dr. Thompson gave a welcome and kicked, you know, kind of started the day, but then she was the opening plenary, and she really got us off on a good start. All the feels with her story.
She should write a book.
Yeah, she referenced a lot of books in her
But she
talk,
should
but
write
she
one.
should write one. You're right. I did not know. I live in northern Shelby County, so just a stone's throw from where she teaches. And when she was telling the story about her little boy, I had heard about this little boy who got in this baseball accident. But I had no idea it was, you know, her little boy. It was a great story. Anybody else have an update or professional celebration or anything you want to share?
Well,
Where can? Go ahead.
I'm loud in the room.
Oh, Becky.
And I'm sorry for that, because I was the shining rain, the sunshine a few minutes ago with Miss Savannah's news. Scholarship wise, I know everybody wants to know what's going on. So we are still, the staffing shortage that we've been having going on here, unfortunately, has not improved. So we are still playing catch up on everything with scholarships. The good news though is, I mean, we're making a really good dent in it. There are a few things that have hindered progress this year. You know, the high schools are not collecting Social Security numbers now like they were in the past. And that's causing some issues with us being able to load students because we don't have data in the database to make that process work faster. And so it's taking extra time to track those numbers down to create accounts and things like that. You know, that in addition to the staffing shortage. So, you know, for example, in a typical year, any of the data we get from the high schools and that we try to load in, if we can't load those students, we throw them into an error spreadsheet. And so we keep up with it so we can work it all till we get them all. In years past, you know, the most we've ever seen that spreadsheet grow is maybe 800 students or so. This year it blossomed up to 2,200. So yeah, it was crazy. And so the good news, if anything, is that we're under the 400 mark on working all of those issues back in.
Oh, wow, you made good progress.
It's good, yeah, and that's one of those things that you have to work on in between the phone ringing and trying to do emails. You know, Cindy's making better progress with catching up with her emails than I am at this point, to be honest. She is actually, and this is going to sound absolutely horrible, but for us, it's a good thing. Her email backlog, she is now actively working requests that came in October. And that sounds horrible. But what you need to understand is, you know, we have a September 15th deadline of sorts for the high schools to send the data in. And, you know, I'd be willing to bet 80% of the high schools across the state wait till about the week before September 15th to start that process. And so everything piles up in September and makes a huge snowball. So just the fact that she has now gotten to the end of September and is into October means that we're on the downhill side of that slope. And she should be picking things up much faster because, and catching up with that. So all of the backlogs and getting all the students, the remaining students into this database, we should be making, you know, good progress with that into the next month, especially as the schools start taking their holiday breaks, and that gives us a chance to work without the phone ringing and everything.
They won't be
So-
calling you as often.
They won't be here as often, yeah, and I tried to mute my phone. We have cloud phones at Kia, and I have my laptop with me, so I've tried to mute it today, so it's not ringing while I'm sitting here, but yeah, so anyway, we're still not caught up. We are trying to make progress, so I'm hopeful that, you know, early spring will at least be starting to break even.
It's good to know that context for when you're hearing things about.
No, I know. I don't know if you heard your ears ringing. The dual credit peer team's like, you know, flowers and prayers to the team, right? Like,
Want to call?
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's like, do I have to send an email? But, you know, there are others that want answers to you. So, I know everybody wants to, on our half, everybody wants to know when the work ready courses will be approved that are outstanding. Were we thinking by the end of the year?
Oh, yeah.
We're thinking about the end of the semester.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean calendar year. I mean calendar year.
Not this next June.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. So we're all saying the same thing. Before the end of December.
Oh, December,
For the middle of
okay.
December.
I can't as confidently say yes to that, one, but, oh, we'll give it our best shot.
All right. Did somebody else online want to say something before Becky was talking about her update? Thought I heard a voice.
Oh, I just wanted to update what was going on in Christian County. We are moving right along with transitioning things over to August of 26 as far as the background goes. We're still operating within the 25-26 school year as far as students are concerned. But we are continuing to build or strengthen rather the partnership between Hopkinsville Community College, Murray State University, and Christian County Public Schools. The Murray State Regional campus, it will be in the back door of the new school. And so we are going to be ramping up more dual credit offerings in that building. We also have personnel that will be working in that building part-time just to help make that transition a little bit easier. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, thanks for the update. We love hearing about partnerships and, you know, great models for partnerships across the state. It's really good news. Sandra. Anybody else? All right, well, let me just give a quick overview of our agenda. I also wanted to just let you all know Amanda is coming. She had some family situations this morning, and so she's dealing with that. And so she's planning to be here a little bit later on, but told her she said, don't wait for me. So we're just moving on. So we today have a couple of kind of big items to talk about and discuss. First of all, we're going to dig into the general education survey discussion. We did launch that survey. We got really good response. There are a few small private institutions who have not responded, but we have only 3 that are outstanding. So we think that's pretty good. And Becky's following up with them to see if we can get movement, but we got really good response, and Becky and I have taken a first pass at just looking at those, and she's going to share a little bit about just kind of our thoughts about what we might do, where we might go from here. So we'll have a discussion about that, and really interested to hear from the council about unintended consequences. You know, we have representatives from post-secondary and from K-12, and it's not always easy to think through what are we missing or what are we not thinking about in this discussion. So we're really going to be leaning into you all to hear anything that you're thinking about that we haven't thought about yet. So Becky's going to share kind of what our discussion was and kind of where we think we could head with the Gen Ed discussion. Then Chris Ledford is going to come in and he's going to share some updated information about dual credit, just some data that's been updated. We always want to keep you all apprised of what is, you know, the numbers. And so he's going to come in, talk about that, which will kind of tee up what I would like to talk about at the end of our meeting today, which is when we think about 2026 and the direction of the council for 2026, what are some of the priorities, you know, that we think should be at the top of the list for the council as we think about improving the experience for students and improving the system that supports, you know, the student experience. And so, you know, I'll just give a quick example. When you think about our dual credit attainment goal, we all know what that goal is. We want to keep pushing toward that 50%, which we're getting really close to already. But, you know, there's also that other piece of how are we doing with underrepresented students? Like, are our low income students, do we see growth in that sector? And if we don't, how can the council think about ways to support those students? Maybe we want to think about stronger partnerships that really help to support the student outcomes that we want to see. We know that dual credit is making a huge difference in terms of post-secondary enrollment. We want to continue to see that. We know that our pass rate is really high for dual credit students, but the more we push into underrepresented students who don't really know how to do college, then we're probably going to need to add in additional supports for those students and those families in terms of communication, just all of that. So we just want to talk about, as we push on our attainment goal, how can we ensure that the student experience is still really good and we're getting the good outcomes that we want, and that our state system of support, which would include all of our agencies that are represented, you know, all the high schools, all the post-secondary institutions and the state agencies who are in that system, so that they're not more and more overwhelmed by the growth that we're seeing. Okay. So that's kind of what our agenda looks like. Does anybody have anything you want to add to that or comment on any of that? All right. Well, we'll dig in then. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, just so everybody can just see each other. And Becky is going to talk a little bit about the Gen Ed survey.
Before you do that though.
Yeah.
Are you gonna put up those 5 classifications for us?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will. You go ahead and start talking because it's going to take me a second to get that. I don't think I have it up.
Okay.
Pull that up.
So, first of all, thank you to, all of our post-secondaries, for turning in, you know, getting your Gen Ed dual credit course offering list in. We are still missing those from just 3 of the very small private schools, and the 3 schools that they're not large dual credit participants. So we know that's going to be a small list when we get those in from them. We also know they've had some turnover, so we think that's probably what's causing the delay there. But that aside, Robin and I had a chance to get together and actually look through all the submissions from the different institutions. And as we, you know, kind of knew, there's some institutions have a very large list of course offerings, and some are a bit smaller. But what we are trying to do with this, and Robin's pulling up this classification, the Gen Eds, with the way that the state policy is written, has, as you all know, have 5 different classifications that those courses can fit into. And really what we saw, I think pretty consistently, Robin, is that there were a large number of courses being offered that fit into that arts and humanities classification. It was
I need to figure out how to bring this. I guess I need to share this up on the other screen. Hang on a second. You get figured out how to do this. Yeah. Let me put it on this one. Sure you can see. I know that Heather said I could, know that you all are seeing a blue screen right now. Hang on a second.
Well, I think you're sharing what's on that screen.
Yeah, but I need to pull this one over to that screen. I don't know how to make this, usually, this thing is showing.
When you share, when you hit that share button,
hang
did
on a
you
second.
see?
It's in here somewhere, isn't it?
She said split screen.
She said split screen,
That's
that
what
one?
she said. Is that the split screen?
No.
She said something about doing a split screen. I caught that.
When you
part
hit,
of what she
when you
said.
hit the share button, did you see your document?
No, but when I do that, it only shows on my.
There it is.
Let me
Oh,
just
nice.
drag
There
it.
you go.
Nice.
Let me just drag
There
it.
we go.
Can
Well,
y'all see
hopefully
that?
they can see it
Can
too.
you all see it?
No.
Can't see it.
Yes.
Oh, you can now.
We can see
Okay.
it.
Good job.
Good job.
Okay, so here's our five categories. With the communications, quantitative reasoning, the arts and humanities, the natural sciences, and social behavior sciences. Arts and humanities was the category that we overwhelmingly saw a snowball effect happening in. So that's already just a little bit of a concern, some of the things we're seeing in there. And Robin, help me, there was another category that seemed to be blossoming, but it wasn't as much of a concern, and I can't remember which one.
Yeah, social and behavioral sciences, there were a lot of
Okay.
options in social.
So on this list that we're looking at with the five categories, the direction that this is headed in. As you know, for scholarship purposes, and we're looking at this exclusively for the scholarship program, for these changes. So let me right now in the beginning say that institutions will still be able to offer whatever dual credit coursework they want to offer to students. What we're looking at is narrowing down the selection of courses that the scholarship will pay for. And as you all know, right now, the way the scholarship is set up, and it's through budget language that it's this way, students are eligible for 2 gen ed dual credit scholarships in the 11th grade and 2 again in the 12th grade. And of course, we have to wait until, the next legislative session this spring, which is a budget session, to see if the legislature is going to continue that 4-course gen ed type of eligibility. And I'll leave my personal comments aside there. You all know what I think about that. But beyond that, just how many courses the students can have covered by scholarship, we're looking at actually coming back in and trying to put some additional limits around the program to say, students cannot take more than 2 courses in any of these 5 categories. So if you see these categories and you see the suggested credit hours there, that's all students really need to have in dual credit in any of these categories. And that's in the policy. So for all of those things, we have at least 6 credit hours. That's kind of hitting the max in most of these credit categories. So that's how we're coming up very generically and saying, when we get back to this, we're going to say, okay, we do not want students to spend their 4 dual credit scholarships taking 4 communications classes. We want to kind of limit that to only having 2 communications classes if they choose communication as their 2 dual credit classes, because that would likely get them to the 6 hours for that category. Likely they might choose to take, 1 in communications and 1 in quantitative reasoning and 2 in arts and humanities. But we're looking at the 4 between these 5 categories, so they don't end up loading up themselves with, 4 arts and humanities classes that are really not going to be able to be used. They're going to just transfer in as electives. So we're looking for, kind of helping the students benefit from by narrowing these choices so they get the classes that can do them the most good. And hopefully eliminating in the process some of these, what we call random acts of dual credit, and some of the concerns that we have down in the legislature. We still get a lot of that complaints, from, parents and things to legislators saying, oh, they got all these dual credits. My child has earned 60 credits, while they're in high school. Why don't they have their associate degree? Because they think all credit hours are created equal. And as soon as you collect 60, it's like coupons. As soon as you collect enough, you get something for free. And as you all know, it just absolutely does not work that way. So this is kind of the focus that we're looking at, is to coming back in within these 5 categories. And ultimately, when this is implemented, we'll have more transparency around it. So the students will know, here's the coursework for this particular institution that's going to count in this category. So if you're going to take something in this category, here's your choices. And then, so with that in mind, as the overall direction we're going in with that, what we are looking at with the institutional list then is trying to see where it makes choices to have the courses on that list. So it's not an all-inclusive list. If your institution offers, 15 courses in the communications category, we're not going to have 15 courses for them to choose from. So the next step that Robin and I are looking at is we're pairing that up with actual enrollment data. So we can start to see where the concentrations are already sitting for the courses that are currently being offered that are on those lists, and trying to see where we have the lower enrollment, which might suggest we have more offshoot, onesie twosie kind of isolated situations that play into that. And then from there, once we do that, we're going to come up with, we're going to share all that information, and we're going to say, here are the courses we're seeing the most concentrations in that might make sense to put on the scholarship approved course list. And then we're going to push all that back to the institutions that sent them and say, okay, now we would like for you to review your own list with this in mind, what we're seeing with the enrollment trending, and then help us narrow things down for your institution so that we can actually come up with, this is what the scholarship's paying for, list for each category. Ideally, I don't have anything in mind, and Robin doesn't either. So I'd say I'm talking Kia and CPE here. As far as the number per category right now, but we're trying to get this thing down to a manageable size. So, in the end, we're probably talking something that's maybe 10 or fewer choices per category for each institution, and kind of headed that way. So you can think in that direction, kind of corralling it in that direction, and we may pull back on that a bit further. But what we don't want to do in the process is, intentionally cut off access. However, we do also realize that I'm going to say 99.9% of the high schools in the state have multiple post-secondary partners. And some of them are partnering with, 6 to 12 institutions. And so the way this may work out is, if we drop a class with this institution, this high school may still be partnering with a different institution to pick up communications classes for their students. And so it's a lot of extra combinations that work out in the end. So there might be, once we get into this, there might be the way that the high schools look at their partnerships as to across these categories, as to which post-secondary partners they can do different things with, to make all of these things happen for their students. But there will be a lot of education around this. There has to be, because what we've seen in the early data is there's still confusion at the post-secondary level, even getting some of these courses into the right category. And I mean, we had one rather large participant who was completely sideways on sending their stuff in, and we're working with them to get that back. It wasn't you, Joel. So.
Thank you.
But anyway, so it's a much larger project with everything, but we do realize there's access issue. The other piece of this is, we know that some of these classes are being offered by credentialed high school instructors. Others might be online, others might be on campus. And so we're kind of trying to be sensitive to that as well, but we still need to keep moving forward with the whole process and this narrowing. And so that's why we're just gonna look at it for enrollment in this next pass. And then we're gonna come back to you all with everything that you know about how things work in the background for your institution. And then help us take an educated look at this so we can start to work on narrowing this down. But keep in mind, what we're doing the narrowing on is just for scholarship consideration. So we can kind of rein that in and say, in the end, that we're getting the most bang for our buck. Our students are getting the most bang for their buck with all the scholarship dollars that we're putting into this. Because, and that's the conversations that I'm having with legislators, especially coming into this budget session. And Kia's already been to the table back in the summer to have conversations with those in the budget committees to make our case to them. We're also having additional meetings with those. And so, and I know there's another one that I'm going to be pulled into probably in December that's coming up. So, you know, this is all good movement. And, you know, I'm already sharing with legislators that we're looking at the gen ed courses to try to make sure that our students are able to take those that are the most beneficial to them. And so they're okay with that. But at the same time, I'm trying to get, you know, I'm actually trying to get about $30 million out of them for next school year and 32 the year after that, just to keep dual credit fully funded. And, you know, and that's all dual credits. That's the gen ed and the CTE. And it's going to be an extremely tight budget session because this has been lottery funded. I'm going sideways here, but you'll hang with me. You know, the lottery's been funding this and 6 other programs in the past, and the projected lottery revenue is not sufficient to cover everything for the next biennium. So they're going to have to make some tough choices. And so dual credit was placed very high on the agency's priority rankings. They always ask us to do that in the budget submission. And we put dual credit, the state's largest need-based grant program is always going to be first, because that's your very low-income poor students that qualify for state grants, Pell grants, and CAP grants. And we put dual credit right underneath that one. So it has a very high place on the priority list, and we're making the case. And the legislature knows that because of the way this is structured, it's really not a situation where we can have a funding shortage and have to start denying kids in the spring, you know, because that's a tough choice. We don't want to pull back anybody's scholarship because we run out of funding. And we've moved money around and we've kept the scholarship program fully funded since it began back in 2016, 17. So, so we're trying to maintain that as well. But this conversation with the gen eds and kind of focusing in on those dollars, I don't look for it to have any kind of impact on the number of students that are participating. I think we'll still have growth in the end. It's just the choices that the students will be making about what they're taking will end up being better choices. And then hopefully they'll graduate with credits, scholarship paid credits that are very useful to them. But again, you all will still be able to offer whatever you want. If they want to take other classes, they're paying for it themselves, or sometimes the districts are subsidizing that, different things like that. And so this is just a conversation about what the scholarship dollars are doing.
Do you feel like we'll continue to see the 2 gen ed for junior and senior year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And at the same time, I also know that legislators generally don't like to take things away. So, but they do have some tight budget decisions to make. So, if they don't put the language back in the budget, their only other choice is to amend the actual scholarship statute. And they haven't, there's been a holdout there, with them not wanting to do that over the last 6 years now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think they realize that dual credit is doing a lot of good. And they're seeing, you know, the degree completion rates pull back, especially the bachelor degree completion rates. You know, we're getting a lot more 4-year completions happening out of that. And it's dual credit that's making the impact. So there's been a lot of support when we've been to the meetings, but I don't want to make it sound like all rainbows and sunshine because it's going to be a money conversation in the end. And dual credit has been growing by $3 million a year. So, any data that we see is that's the bottom line on the dollar. So when you talk about one, 3-hour class being about $300 and we're growing that by 3 million a year, that's a lot of extra scholarships and a lot of extra growth across the state.
I wanted to just make a couple of comments about mine and Becky's initial look at all of this. First, I want to say that Dr. Thompson always gives a lot of credit to dual credit for the increase in post-secondary enrollment across the state. He thinks it's a huge driver of post-secondary enrollment, and we know.
You take it away, there is still growth.
Yeah,
No.
from our data, that dual
none.
credit students are matriculating at way higher rates than students who don't take it. So I'll just throw that out there too, that he's very supportive of it and thinks of it not as just an early post-secondary opportunity, but also very related to post-secondary enrollment.
I do have a question, like Moorhead, what's your retaining students that take dual credit for you? What percentage of those stay with you? Is it like 30%?
There's problems looking straight at matriculation.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do is,
Do you want me to help you out?
please, well, let me, our students are bringing in dual credit from everywhere.
Right.
And all freshmen, regardless of where they attend college, we're seeing more and more students with dual credit. Now, it may be dual credit from KCTCS, it may be dual credit from Moorhead. We are not exclusively recruiting in our service region.
Right.
Our service region is declining in population. They have closed multiple schools in the past 10 years.
Right.
So we are looking, so we do use dual credit as a recruitment initiative. So we do go to areas that we do not have a historic success in getting first-time freshmen. So our matriculation rate is a little bit lower than that.
Right.
But our graduation rate, the students who come in with dual credit graduate at twice
Oh,
the
yeah.
the
I saw the
rate.
data, but again, those were students that are being like third-year high students anyways. But going back to your point, I love what you're doing, the general ed courses. Like I love limiting those to students' access. I wish CPE could just do that across the board of what courses that are even available to students. I guess I'm the only high school teacher that's in the classroom right now. But I see a little bit, how to put this, like online courses with high school students are a little different than they are when you have a college student take an online course. If you haven't been in a classroom in the last year, you have no clue they're cheating their way through it. Does that make sense on AI? I mean, that's what they're doing. And then they get to their next level course and they're clueless. I guess that's kind of my frustration too, is, I love that you're going to limit it, but it's only going to be for the scholarship students, correct? And can we limit it to say it has to be certain courses like in person, or is it just?
So we've never gone the distance with putting anything around the course delivery method.
Okay.
And the reason that we haven't done that is just so we can have opportunity in areas of the state where it's more difficult for students to actually access coursework close to a campus, or they might not have somebody in their high school who can teach that.
Well, I live in a rural area, so I live in East Kentucky, so I'm your area actually of Moorhead and Hazard. I think someone else mentioned this. And what I found is post-COVID is they offered it in person pre-COVID, and after COVID, they don't offer it in person anymore. And I guess that's what I find frustrating as a teacher, because I don't think my students are getting the same opportunities as other kids. And I think it should be in person by a teacher that you've educated, a high school teacher, or.
We would love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think
the number of dual credit certified teachers is shrinking every year.
Yeah.
They're all retiring, and there's no one at these schools to replace them.
I think that's one
So
of
in
our
order-
conversations for the 2026 is to really think about teacher
course.
credentialing.
Yeah.
How can we, improve on that?
But
Because
in order for us to keep offering the same level of courses. And one of the things that Morehead State has been very intentional about is we don't want to penalize a kid based on where they live. So if you live at certain places, you have more opportunities than other places. So we have really worked hard on leveling that playing field, getting those certain classes that are offered most places. But sometimes the only way we can offer that is online.
Like a communication class my kids take right now, it's totally online. Is that really teaching them public speaking skills?
It's the
If it's
same,
done
it's
right,
the
yeah,
same.
exactly.
I think so.
I mean, but
certainly could.
100%. But I think, I mean, and I don't know what school you're talking about, right? But the rigor and expectation in the online class is expected to be the same as in the classroom. And I mean, you just talked about your SACS visit. That's one of the reasons that they're coming to look at this, right? Nothing's supposed to be watered down. Nothing's supposed to be different. And I don't know that you can say this is happening across the board, but maybe it's happening at your school district, and I don't know who your partner is, and that's certainly something that needs to be addressed.
Friends across the state, different things. I guess that's what we talk about on the CPE board, correct? Is making sure that it's rigorous enough to.
Oh, yeah, it needs
prepare
to
for the
be.
next step.
And
And there
AI
are a
is
lot of
challenge.
safeguards in place for
I
that.
mean, AI is just a challenge for all of us right now. I will say, like, at our institution, we're like, there is nothing that can stop a student. KCS does not have a software that is reliable. There is not a software. I shouldn't even say that KCTCS doesn't have it. There's not a software that is reliable out there that will tell you if a student is cheated or not.
But
That
what
is
we're
the-
doing is shifting so that we're not
Yes.
using assessments and assignments that an AI can take, right?
Right.
It's taking a little while for us to change that in the curriculum, but those are the conversations we're having, right? So that it's a
Right.
student-led, they're giving the presentation. They can't turn something in that an AI could have done. That doesn't help the need this semester or maybe even next semester, but those are the conversations we're having because this is not just a dual credit problem.
No,
This
our
is
faculty
an
are
across the
concerned
board
about
education
it.
problem.
And our faculty are concerned about it, and I look at it and it's
Very.
like, how do you teach students that they're shortchanging no one but themselves?
Yeah.
That's the,
Jana's got her hand up. I want to make sure she gets a chance.
Well, I raised it a few minutes ago, and both Harmony and Kara and Joel have kind of said all that, but one of the things that I hear the most is communications courses. They're not getting the rigor. How do we know they're not learning anything? And I think this probably goes for many institutions because I hear students talk about a communications at Morehead or communications at Hazard or wherever. A lot of teachers, a lot of professors now require that those students do videos that are them, and they are being judged by their peers, and they're actually doing those communicative methods with videos of themselves. So those are the things I think that they're trying to combat those issues. Now, I've been around for a long time. Somebody said a while ago they've been around for years with dual credit. I can remember incentives being put around teachers who were credentialed at the high school level to teach. That was way back in the Mary Jo Young scholarship days, long time ago. And there was incentives for students to take those classes taught by those teachers, and they got a cheaper price. But then legislative action kind of changed all that. So, and I think that was a little bit, Becky probably can speak to that a little bit more, a little messier probably in ways. But I do think that AI is challenging, but I think that we professors are really trying hard to bring those issues to where we can work those through. Yeah. Just agreeing with everybody.
Go back around to the conversation just about our next steps for this survey. Did you want to say something?
Actually, I want to go back to the 5 categories that we
Yeah.
limited.
Oh, I've got so many questions.
I understand the concept. I support the concept. I would really push for 3 classes in the oral and written communications.
yes.
English 1 and 2 is required at every institution in the state. So, and communications is also.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and for
Okay.
students to be successful, in any college course, they need to know how to write a paper.
Yep.
That's taught in English 102. So we need to
And
have
research.
English 1 and English 2, so they can be successful in the rest of their courses. They're also giving presentations. We need to teach them how to do that. So it's only, if we limit that to 2, we are setting our students up to not be as successful with the skills that they need later in the class.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Joel, because one of the next steps for me is, you know, the categories, they have a range. And, so like from 6 to 9. So one of the things on my to-do list from mine and Becky's conversation is to go back to all of the 8 publics and KCTCS and check to see, do they require 6 or 9 in those categories? If there's a range, because we want to make sure that if the public institutions are requiring 9, that a student has an opportunity to get the 9, you know. So I am going to go back and take a look at that. That's not set in stone, but I think the idea is that we don't want students to take all 4 of their dual credit classes in one category, you know,
Yeah.
because that's,
Like for
we know
us,
that's not going to be beneficial.
Communications are 2 different categories. We have an oral communication category and we have a written communication category. So when you collapse them, it's exactly what
Yeah.
Joel's saying.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so that is on my to-do list, is to check what all of the public institutions are requiring in those categories, so that we don't narrow it too narrow, so that they can't meet those minimum requirements. The other thing, I think Becky alluded to this, that we plan to do is consolidate the report in all the reports into one, where there are tabs for all the different institutions, and then ask our data team to look at enrollment in these courses. Because we don't want to make a recommendation like Joel, you know, at Morehead State, we don't know how many students are in a particular class, or whether that would be on your list, you know, of ones that would be highly recommended. And some of the more obscure classes, you know, when Becky and I are looking at the titles of them, we're wondering, you know, are there 10 students across the state who take this course, or are there 10,000 students across the state who take this course? And so we do want to be able to bring enrollment data back to this group. How many students are enrolled statewide, and how many students are enrolled in this class and paying for it with a scholarship? So we can figure that out, because I think that will help to think for this group to kind of think about, you know, next steps. And then also to just think about the student experience. So like students who participate in dual credit, are they mostly maxing out the 4 gen ed scholarships, or are they taking 1.5 or 2? You know, we want to learn a little bit more about the student demographic as well, and how they're accessing the scholarship. Because we do, you know, if students can take 2 in their junior year and 2 in their senior year, we don't want them to get to their senior year and not know that they missed out on 2, you know. So we want to make sure that students can maximize the, you know, the benefit of what's available to them. So,
Can I add just one thing to that? I do think it's important to, as we're looking at that information, to also take into consideration graduation requirements for at the high school side, because I know like 101 can count for our junior or our senior English, but 102 cannot count for either one. And so, with KCTCS, I know we use English 161 for our senior English if the student has taken 101 their junior year. So just, you know, those types of things probably need to be taken into consideration a little bit too, as we look at the different categories.
Sandra, thank you so much for that comment. That's Becky and I talked about, you know, a lot of times what happens at the high school is driven by who is credentialed at the high school to teach a dual credit course. And, you know, we don't want to limit a high school where they can't offer any in-person dual credit courses because of this narrowing. We don't want that to be an unintended consequence. So what you just brought up is a really, really good point.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is they take English 161, that does not count towards our gen ed core. So that's only for some students that are pursuing something particular that requires that class. Otherwise, it counts as an elective. So you're not wrong about English 102, but I wouldn't put English 161 on that list either, if that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And we do, when we advise students, we advise them to take 101 and 102, because if they're transferring to a 4-year, it's better to have both of those plus the communications piece. But we have so many students that still want to take a dual credit English class their senior year. And so that's really the only option that we have thus far. So I don't, if there's any suggestions, I'm open to them.
We also jump on that, Monday at the conference, it was shared with me that, one of the English 100 classes that I work with has a large number of students who already have completed the AP, have already passed an AP exam. But they're taking English 100 for dual credit to meet high school graduation requirements.
Okay.
So we would not require it on the college side, but the high schools are requiring it for high school
But we have a
graduation.
policy mismatch. That's really what it comes down to.
This is, and we have a lot of site-based that have not updated their guidelines lately.
Correct.
And they're operating on guidelines that are no longer in effect.
I mean, the challenge is being the end all be all for everybody.
Right.
And that's where the student then suffers, because the high school requirement's one thing, what counts to post-secondary is another. And just taking a dual credit course for the sake of taking a dual credit course is not what dual credit is about. I mean,
Right.
I do agree with you.
I see that Chris is here, but I have so many questions. I don't know if I should follow up with you separately or if there are questions for other people.
No, I think you can just make some notes and stuff. We can probably come back to this, don't you think, Robin? I mean,
Oh, we are definitely gonna
I need
come-
to discuss too. I mean,
come
this is a large project,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a very worthwhile project to get us here. And it's not gonna be simple to come through, just gathering lists of courses was baby step.
And it took a minute.
Yeah, and even
It took
that
a minute
was,
to
so
get it
it's,
done,
yeah,
so,
so we need to, let's go to Chris and then let's come back to this conversation because there's a whole lot of things that we need to talk about.
Yeah, well, and you all, we have a work session in January, and I was thinking at the work session would be a great time for us to bring back the additional information, enrollment data and all that kind of thing that we need to talk about. And I also wanted, Becky, did you talk to Timeline at all? I wanted to.
I have not, but no,
Okay.
that's one of the things we need to come back and revisit, the general feelings on timeline for this.
But do we have time for one quick question? Because I know it's a heartache on our end. What will happen to foreign languages under this?
We haven't made that decision.
Okay.
So
Because it's, foreign languages is a transfer requirement for most schools.
I had a conversation with Melissa Bell about foreign language and how some institutions offer and or require it and others do not. And so, the short,
But it's a high school graduation requirement. It's a pre-college curriculum issue.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's a KDE issue more than a
Yes.
CBE.
It's a policy mismatch.
100%.
But the short answer that Melissa kind of landed on for me was if a post-secondary institution requires it as part of their general education core, they could offer it as a general education requirement. If it's in arts and humanities, it should transfer
It's not
as an
for us,
arts and
though.
humanities.
It's not for us. We
cut
don't
out
have that
yeah.
category. We have a foreign language category, and it's because we are a transfer institution. So we allow that, it's part of our associate degree, but it falls in block 2 and not the general core. But it's a gen ed course, but it's not in one of those 5 categories.
And the reason that change was made previously was because of the 60, to stay under 60 credit.
Yeah, we
hours
couldn't meet that
for
requirement.
associate's degree.
Yeah.
Cause it was a category in the AA degree for years and then it got moved out because to stay under 60, we had to sacrifice it for something else.
Yes.
I gotcha.
And that would be an unintended consequence strictly because of the graduation requirement and potential requirement of the 4-year school the student wants to go to.
Okay, let's revisit that conversation, because I'm wondering if that is how our transfer policy kind of aligns to what you're saying. And then maybe we can have Melissa come and weigh in on that too at our work session in January. I think that is a really important question. We've been getting a lot of questions.
That's probably one of the number one questions I got about this project.
Okay, okay.
We want to turn it over to Chris now?
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on. I know that you all have a lot more questions and comments about this project. Be thinking about unintended consequences and feel free to email those to me. I would like to have a good collection of those that we could bring to the meeting in January, the work session in January, not the meeting, work session in January. You know, as we dig in a little bit more and you know, try to think a little bit more about what we're after here. Any final comments from those of you who are online? I don't mean to exclude you from this conversation. Just wanna. James, you're up.
Thoughts, but I just need to gather them.
He'll be ready in January.
Yeah, he'll be ready in January. All right. So Chris, I'm not exactly sure technology wise how to do what we need to do. You want me to just share your slides?
You drive.
I'll drive.
Here's
Okay.
this as well.
Which one am I using?
Both. It should, can you?
I don't think she's got two.
Uh-oh, she's got.
The thumb,
That's not gonna be possible.
the thumb drive, just use that, if you can. Just advance.
Because I
that, that'll
have-
be-
I don't think she's got another
I
outlet.
have one, but it doesn't work. So do you want to put your computer and just plug in?
We can try that.
Okay.
You won't be able to do that with the live stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about, can you send it to me by email?
Yeah.
Send me your presentation by
Okay.
email and then I can.
While you do that, I'm gonna ask another question while we work on technology.
Yes, let's do it.
When you say, two courses, will labs still be paired?
Yes,
So like bio?
no changes
Yeah, okay,
there.
so paired, thank you.
That's why we've taken a course approach instead of a credit hour approach.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to the roots of the conversation 10 years ago surrounding all this, the limits, so.
I think another quick one is we have, and I don't think we're the only institution, we have some courses that fall in multiple categories.
Yeah, we noticed that on the reports.
Yep.
That some of them do that.
I mean, we don't have that many, but we have a few, so I was just curious, like,
Yeah.
would they only be offered in one, or would you put them in both, and?
I think that's just one of those things we have to note and work through.
And some are in Gen Ed and in CTE. We saw that. So in some of the reports. So there are a handful of courses that, you know, could be in either category.
I
So,
mean, we know.
Well,
we have
they're
the-
technically Gen Ed, but they're required for many CTE pathways.
Right, so we know we already have some of that happening now,
Yeah.
anatomy and physiology, you know,
Econ.
some of those, yeah. So, there's, like I said, not gonna be completely easy, but we'll have to work through a lot of little knots to get everything where we want it.
Thanks. I'll save the other ones.
all right. So I think what I need to do again is to share this screen.
I'm just struggling, Becky, to, well, we haven't been, well, she's still doing this. I'm just struggling to think how this is gonna work with the award process. That's the part that makes me go,
But yeah, like particularly when a
How
student has
is
a
this
scholarship
gonna-
at two schools,
yeah,
yeah.
because we have students a lot that take
I'm already
classes with
working on
Moorhead
it.
that.
Oops.
I can't wait to.
Fucking design databases.
Okay, so those of you online, I can't see you now, but can you see the slides?
Sure can.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I just want to start off by saying I absolutely love dual credit. And I appreciate the work that everybody in this room and online are doing. It's been a great honor to work with Rob on a lot of this stuff. I just think it matters so much and appreciate the work y'all are doing. I put my email on this board and, we'll get it in the chat. Because as I'm sure Lindsay and Robin can both attest, like we do these presentations at board meetings and whatnot, and there's always a lot of questions. But I'm really excited about dual credit and I care a lot about it, and I'm happy to dig into whatever we need to with data and empirics to tell the success story that's happening in Kentucky. So please email me questions. I love this stuff and I will answer you. So let's jump in. Just as a reminder, like kind of why we're doing all this stuff. And I know folks in this room and experts in this room and online know this stuff, but we're kind of started off, way back when with emphasizing dual credit because of all these various benefits that are just consistent, frankly, across national research, the implications, benefits, and college benefits of taking dual credit, just a ton of research out there. This is I always love to start with this. We have that big bold dual credit attainment goal that we like to talk about. And I love showing this because number one, it shows the remarkable progress. This growth is not only, same students doing the same, coming back year after year, but it's more and more and more students enrolling, which is what we're all about, right? It's not the same people taking more dual credit. It's about more people taking dual credit to reap those benefits that we see. I also love showing this slide because as a policy sort of nerd, I think you can see two really clear impacts of policy levers here. The first is right around here, this big seismic jump in dual credit participation. This is right around the foundation of dual credit scholarship. In fact, this is its first year. And right around here, you see another sort of moderately large jump. That's when some of the dual credit goal was established, kind of reorganization of CEC and some of the work groups that are doing a ton of stuff around dual credit. So I really think, this is descriptive, of course, but I think you see evidence of policy levers here, which I love to show.
When did we start the work, Ready?
Right about, work came along, 2019-ish. But right there where that jump happens from 22, 23, that's where the legislators start to expand through the budget expansion on the gen eds.
Yeah, from 2 to 4.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna over speculate on this too much, but conversation Robin and I had, it's very realistic that we may be looking at 50% and saying the rate we're going. Dual credit enrollment, we have prelim fall enrollment as of September. We're collecting final right now. The dual credit's having another massive year across sectors, which is fantastic. And just some sort of other descriptive statistics. The last year that we had full enrollment, 23-24, almost 50,000 students enrolled in dual credit who earned 315,010 credit hours. Just a side note, so here you're looking at public high school graduates. These are post-secondary data numbers. So this is all enrollment for all students and total credit hours. This is just the public high school side of it. But anyway, you cut it, frankly. Impressive stuff.
Back to the goal, are we looking at subcategories for the goal to make sure that there's growth across the board?
Yes, I don't have them off the top of my head, but looks good.
Yeah, and I just remember when we set the goal, right, a big part of the conversation, it's not just for the sake of growth, it's growth across the board.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you can see some of that here, but also we need to look at subgroups. But keep in mind, like these are graduate cohorts. So again, these are not people, that we're double counting. These are independent observations.
Right.
But yeah, the subgroup thing looks like this as well.
That's great. Because I think we all know that white females are overrepresented in dual credit, so we just don't want to see only that category grow.
And I can, if you want to send me an email or, just remind it, I have those data. I don't have them on the top of my head, but I can give you some empirics on that.
The 49,000 for 23-24, is that just public or is that all college students?
All college, yeah. It's got IQ.
But it's not dual credit students. It's all college students.
No, that's dual credit students.
Okay. That's
So that's 4-year, that's independent colleges, universities, KCTCS, and 4-year public.
What about homeschool?
They would be counted in the other.
If they're enrolled in
They've
a
enrolled in
college.
the college,
Yeah.
they count it.
Got it, yeah,
If they're, yeah, I mean, that is total enrollment right there.
that's great.
And it's,
I
again,
can't wait to see what it is for 24-25.
it's, if I can get to it here in a
Yeah,
second.
of course it is.
Yeah.
I will tell you what Freeline is saying about, this year, University and so on.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some stuff that I really like to talk about with our stakeholders, is sort of painting this ROI picture, right? Because the dual credit scholarship, both of the buckets of the dual credit scholarship are critical to this. I mean, you kind of saw that on the last slide. So I like to start with the funding aspect of the ROI, and I think it's really interesting to see, you know, how much the average award per student per year. This is not the average award to an individual student, but an individual student within an academic year. Has gone up, you know, it's almost doubled. Just a caveat, these are public students enrolled at public universities and colleges because they're the only students for whom we collect financial aid data. But I think that's really impressive, given where we're getting ready to go. Now we're gonna look at the total expenditure to public students, which has gone up by almost $7 million over the last 7 academic years. Just really remarkable. So then what is the implication? What are the implications of this investment? So here I'm kind of breaking this out into students who received the dual credit scholarship versus those who did not. This is the Gen Ed dual credit scholarship. Just a seismic gap, 42 percentage points in college going rates, almost 20 percentage points in persistence rates, and a pretty big gap there in GPA. I know questions are coming about inferential statistics, which I'm working on right now. So this is just descriptive, right? If you did not take dual credit, your college going rate's about 41% over the period, about 83% if you did. We've been working with a most recent 5-year data set from KDE and KY Stats, which is awesome because it's literally the universe. It's a population study. And about 20 percentage points of this can be isolated to the impact of dual credit. 20 percentage point gap. And to your question, that gap is larger for underrepresented and low income students compared to their counterparts. That's huge. Dual credit is an access driver, but it's an equitable access driver. Of course, some of the underrepresented and underserved groups, you know, they start with a lower college going rate. But the percentage point change is greater for those groups than high income or non-underrepresented student groups. Powerful stuff.
And I think that's why it's so important, you know, I appreciate what you brought up about the online, right? But if we can't get dual credit to certain places other than online.
Yeah.
Then I think we can see the potential of that impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But aren't all KCTCSs located 20 minutes from everybody in the state of Kentucky?
But not every student has transportation to get.
Right, but for the professors to come there, correct?
But we don't have the capacity to provide that.
Not all of them.
No.
Oh, I thought was that in the CPE meeting I heard that?
I think, did you say that every Kentuckian is within a half an hour of a
Yes.
KCTCS campus?
Yes.
Okay. I knew I heard that.
Yes.
Yes, but that doesn't mean we have the capacity to bring instructors to every high school.
Yeah.
I knew I had. I was like,
Yeah.
I was
No,
like,
you're right.
I was like, Chris is.
Because we've got what, 76 campuses across the state now?
And KCTCS has delivered instruction at 350 or 360 locations statewide.
Yeah.
It's insane. Full by size to be.
Yeah, I was impressed when Chris brought that up at this
Yeah.
board meeting.
Well, I'm glad that data points that for you. Thanks.
Yeah, source Alicia Crouch.
Mhm.
I think the next slide, we've got
Okay.
the tech Yeah, this is work ready dual credit. You know, the gaps are not as huge because understandably, some of these people are getting industry certifications or transitioning straight into the workforce. But clearly, a lot of folks are continuing on, you know, pursuing a certificate or an associate's degree, or maybe even an advanced degree. You know, still some pretty sizable, at least in the descriptive sense, about 20 percentage points different, higher college going rate, persistence rate, about 5 percentage points, and nearly a quarter of a grade point in the first year. You think about a quarter of a GPA point in 1 year, you know, it's pretty strong. Moving on.
Well, before you do, yeah, go ahead.
You go, Robin.
I was just gonna mention, Amanda brought this up and I thought it was a really good point about the first year GPA. I mean, it's impressive for a lot of reasons, but it's especially impressive on this slide and the one before for students who are trying to get and keep financial aid. You know, to get and keep scholarships. You know, we see similar trends for students in terms of their unmet need and their graduation, their debt at graduation. The dual credit is impacting that in a positive way. And so a lot of this is just sort of a confluence of different things, but I really want to not gloss over this first year GPA for Gen Ed and for Work Ready, because that has a lot of ripple effects for students when they're in their persistence and enrollment. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, both this 2.4 and depending on what we're looking at, 2.0, 2.5, you're looking at scholarship cuts, depending on what they are, or satisfactory academic progress cuts. So that's a really apt point. Just to see the difference in those relative to some scholarship cuts, to SAT cuts, on the GPA scale.
So at the risk of opening a can of worms on the Work Ready, but not for today's discussion, but maybe a future, and also tying it back to the funding issue. Can we see what year students access the Work Ready scholarship in? I'm guessing that not a whole lot of them are using it their freshman year. And that's not necessarily, you know, funds left on the table, because I know, you know, it's one pot of money. But at the same time, I just sort of wonder the utilization, and if at some point we should start looking at the fact, do they need to their freshman year? Just a question I want to throw out there.
We can.
Okay. So you have that.
Angie and Sandra, do you all have any?
We do not have as many freshmen, just simply because our ATC, we have 3 feeder schools that go into that. And so our spots are limited for some of those courses. And so it is typically our junior senior. We do have freshmen. Yeah. But.
Is there a benchmarking issue?
Well, so yes and no. So technically, we need them to have a 2.0 to be in the course, but by the freshman year, they don't have a 2.0.
Right.
So we waive that. They can take 1 course per semester with the recommendation of somebody. So, but a lot of them also don't know, depending on what the exposure is in middle school. By the time in 9th grade, they don't know that they could have gotten the scholarship and enrolled in a CTE course. So I think there's a lot of things at play on why we should maybe just, I don't know if there's an opportunity to look at it there, or we just leave it be because it's working the way it should be.
Yeah.
We don't have freshmen taking any dual credit Work Ready courses
Partners.
A lot
in
of
Christian County.
high school's created in terms of their CTE pathways. You know, are they including a course that's part of that 4-course sequence in the freshman year? And a lot of times we see it in allied health, like AHS medical terminology, that's the first class that they have. And then CIT 105 is the other one.
Yeah.
Do you know what it means?
Like at your school?
Some of the
I
other
mean, I'm in the
things?
CTE world. I mean, technically I could teach at college, with what I do, but I don't do the dual credit because I don't teach it at same pace that a college level course would go. It's the same material, but I teach it at a slower pace. So I don't think that's fair to call it a college course at that point. But it would mess up, and this would be a question for Dr. Fletcher, but I think it would mess up your funding a little bit at the schools because they have to take certain pathways and courses in our CTE world to be able to get federal funding. Like they have to have 3 years of fund courses or 4, and then we get more money. So I think that would be an issue that you would run into if you start offering it to freshmen.
And just anecdotally, I've heard a lot of counselors talk about the way that they structure the freshman year at the high school. There's just not room in the schedule for that, you know,
right,
so a lot of them don't have. But I think I think it's definitely a option to be had. It's available if people even know that it's available.
The note here, we were talking about prelim enrollment, and these are not on any slides if folks want to jot these down, but for comparing prelim to prelim, fall 24 to fall 25, total dual credit enrollment is up 9.5%.
Wow.
Four-year public dual credit is up 6.1%, and that the total in on that's 11,236. KCTCS dual credit's up 13.6, and the in on that is 23,978. And the independent institutions went down 4.2, but that's the change on that's like 170 students or something. So, you know, got to keep that in mind. But I mean, that's massive, and as Harmony would probably know better than I. Like I fully anticipate that KCTCS in particular, that dual credit number, we're at 24,000-ish right now. That'll end up in the 30s after some of the short-term courses that started after prelim or captured in final. You know, we're probably looking at 35,000 students, KCTCS alone, if that bump holds. It's remarkable. So
Yeah,
yeah,
our staffing hasn't changed. I just have to say that. Yeah.
And I-
Campaign, the struggle's real.
I can try to start pulling final, maybe out of edits sometime next week and get some sort of idea of where we're gonna finish, but
Okay.
it's very promising. All right, moving along. So this is really driving into the ROI stuff, you know. I'm talking about credits earned, time to degree, and savings and lower tuition. So the success metrics are there, the college going metrics are there. Well, what about when they get to college? This is, you're the second group of folks, you've already seen it, but you're the second group of folks to see this. This is late breaking news. So what you're looking at is average time to degree, bachelor's degree. We're looking at public four-year universities. Next several slides look the same. You got a blue line, a green line, and an orange line. And all these forthcoming slides, the blue line is no dual credit, the orange line is yes dual credit, and then matriculated. And the green line is the sector average for time to degree. One thing I'll say about this slide is that for all three of those lines, they're going down, which is good. We're almost, for the sector average, we're at 4.1. 4.09 time to a bachelor's degree. If you think about, you know, how we're moving these over time, we're talking about tens of thousands of students over time. And that metric's still going down. That's incredible. But if you look at dual credit students, you know, we've got a difference of you know, 0.12 here under a four-year degree. And a difference of about 0.3 to students who matriculated but had not taken dual credit. Then you translate that 0.3, you know, round that up, that's almost a semester average over all those students represented in that data set. Similarly, I think we've got KCTCS here.
Yeah, hang on one second. I just wanted to make one comment about this slide. Left me what I was getting ready to say.
Well, one thing I forgot to add, you know, you multiply semester tuition or an academic year tuition times all the folks that are represented here. This is ROI, big time.
And housing and books and everything.
Yeah.
There's much more cost than just tuition.
I know that when our legislators are talking about dual credit, time to degree is always part of that conversation. They really invest in it because they think that it helps students' time to degree and their affordability. And so I think this is huge, but I do want to just also mention that for students, when we hear from students directly, time to degree is not necessarily the thing that they talk about the most related to dual credit. They talk about how it helped them get off to a good start. They understand the sense of belonging on campus, confidence
Yes.
about their ability to be successful. And a lot of them talk about, and our student on the CPE board mentioned this at the last meeting, they talk about their ability to get a minor or a double major in the same amount of time.
Yes.
And so
That's what we see.
that return on investment is not really captured here, but when they end up with an additional degree, it's really meaningful to those students.
One of the things that we've seen is with student teachers, they're able to graduate in May and not have to come back and take an extra semester to student teach, graduating in December.
Really great.
Yeah, can I add something too? I think it's also interesting to think about it in the terms of a student can take 12 hours and not have to take 15 and try to academically kill themselves
They do
to
mention
get
that.
through the work.
Mhm.
Because I know myself, like, dual credit wasn't a thing. The only thing I graduated with high school credit in for college was English. And I had to take 15 to 18 credit hours every semester, and that was such a struggle. And it is also like, that is a huge part
Yeah.
for a lot of students, because for our population, we have part-time students because they work. So if they have some credits at least, then they're not killing themselves trying to work and go to school.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, that qualitative stuff is good to add to this when you, when and if you present to others. The other thing, particularly what you were saying about the confidence, I think that's doubly important for our first gen students. You know, because these, you know, to your point before about the high flyers, the ones that are gonna go anyway, like, okay, yeah, dual credit, they reap all of the benefits, but the ones it's a game changer for are those who wouldn't have gone to college without the exposure of dual credit. And that's really who I think we need to be reaching and focusing on a lot more.
Well, and I think that's a real selling point for institutions. I know that, you know, like especially the four-year institutions, when you look at the reimbursement rate, it's, you know, well below what they would be charging for tuition. But when you think about the number of students who are in college who wouldn't be there if it weren't for dual credit.
Yes.
That there is a long-term, you know, return on
Yeah,
investment.
I almost
So
like
think
want to
it
see
makes
one of those graphics, right, that have like the 100 people on it, and then you do a different color on them that shows like if it weren't for dual credit, they would not be enrolled
They
in.
would be there.
Yeah, it's like 1/3, right? Your scholarship pays 1/3. That's what we learned last meeting, right? Of what it would be if they were normal.
For 50%
of our
ACC,
tuition,
yeah. So if it's like Thomas takes more, it's 1/3, right?
Yes, for,
Oh,
yeah, compared to their actual tuition,
To their
it's a
actual
much lower
tuition.
rate,
Okay.
yeah.
oh, it's significantly lower.
Yeah, I told you all I was a numbers.
Speaking of numbers, people, I think another thing to keep in mind here is so that blue line and the
Yeah.
orange line, no dual credit matriculated, yes, dual credit matriculated. And the data set, if you can imagine, that's a 0-1. So this is smashing together, if you took one class or if you took 30 classes. So what's important in everything we see, when you break out, you know, 1 to 2 classes, to 3 classes, to 4 classes, the impact of what we're looking at just is magnified. So you're seeing these big of a gap between those blue and orange lines with, you know, everybody truncated to, yes, you took it, however much you took, you're a 1, which is just remarkable. This is KCTCS, time to degree by dual credit attempt status. So again, the blue lines, people who did not take dual credit but matriculated. The orange lines, people who did and matriculated, and the green line is the sector average. Again, big thing. Think again, this is even probably more impressive because KCTCS is the largest institution collectively in the state. And, you know, tens of thousands of people are moving that green line down, but all the other ones are going down too. If you're looking at well over a semester difference between the matriculators, dual credit or not, and almost a semester between the dual credit matriculators and the sector average.
And I mean, so for that just means how much quicker somebody's getting out into the workforce.
Yeah.
Or potentially transferring.
And not taking on, you know, out of pocket expenses or debt, which
And in the
ironically
workforce.
is where we're going next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the good thing is for not all, because it's not a 1-to-1, but many of these can use the Kentucky Work Ready Scholarship to get this degree.
So let's talk about debt.
Okay.
Perfect.
I teed that up for you.
So we've got two breakouts. One is proportion and one is amount. So, again, we're looking at public post-secondary graduates. So these are the proportion of students with any debt, 1 to whatever, above 0. This is the proportion of graduates, with debt by dual credit attempt status. Again, the lines being the same thing. People who matriculated without dual credit, 47% in the most recent year graduated with at least $1 of debt. For those who did, almost 34%, a gap of, in the most recent year, about 14 percentage points. And again, the dual credit matriculators about almost 8 percentage points under the sector average. This is, again, all three of those lines going down is the Kentucky story that I just love trumpeting everywhere I can. This is a, you know, as much as we're talking about dual credit and focused on dual credit, this is a public sort of media and political narrative. You know, college is out of touch. Colleges, you know, getting ridiculously inexpensive because people look at cost of attendance and they don't go any further than that. They don't incorporate financial aid, the impact of dual credit, so on and so. The empirics are clear.
Yeah.
That loads at graduation are falling, and they're falling across all sectors. Just for perspective, when you bucket in all of the both public sectors, the 2-year and the 4-year, over the past 5 years, average debt loads at graduation the amount has decreased by 34%. 34%.
It's amazing. Is there a correlation between shorter time to graduation and the debt?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can tease that out too. Let's look at KCTCS.
Okay.
Or wait.
That's
This
not
is-
us. What's that one?
That first slide is probably, there's a typo in there, I think. What's next? Oh, here we go. So this is the proportion of KCTCS graduates with any debt by dual credit attempts. That's got a 20 percentage point gap between matriculators who had no dual credit and those who did. And again, this is just 1-0. We cut this out into multiple classes. That gap, that impact gets bigger and almost 8 or 10 percentage points under the sector average. And 70% of KCTCS students graduate with no debt at all. This is just remarkable. So what about the amounts? This is average debt at graduation for all public completers. These data do include all graduates, so you got the zeros and the 1 or graders in here. Almost a little over a $6,000 average debt at graduation between non-dual credit and dual credit matriculators. And the gap, you know, you can see the 2 bottom lines there, the gap between the sector average and the matriculators with dual credits, almost $4,000. And again, this is 1-0. If we extrapolate that orange line out into class counts, the gap only gets bigger. Why don't we get these?
Was the other one all graduates and this one is just 4-year?
No. It was, the other one was 4-year too, but.
Okay.
I'm not sure what's happening with this. Anyway, here's KCTCS. Almost $3,300 difference between matriculators with dual credit and without, and almost $2,000 with dual credit matriculators and the sector average. It's just insane. I think, do you want to cover this stuff or you want me to?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you can talk, you know what it's about. You can talk about it if you want to, but I don't mind to.
We've, one thing that we've been really interested in, I'll make 2 points. One is this massive inferential study, where we're looking at, so there's a clear relationship between dual credit and matriculation likelihood, 20 percentage points again, and population studies of Kentucky students. Our big burning question right now is what types of course contexts moderate that relationship. In other words, strengthen that relationship. When you take classes at the high school primary employed teacher or a college primary employment, online, not
I was gonna answer
online,
your question.
which we're wrapping up right now. The second big thing is just access, descriptive access data, and what that looks like statewide. So this is just kind of a picture to illustrate what the area development districts are. One thing that's jumped out at me that I actually hear the opposite of a lot is the dual credit participation is much stronger in rural areas than it is in urban areas. And I think, you know, back to the role that IQ and KCTCS especially play in as an access point in those regions, I think you clearly see that in the data that we're looking at. The other thing is that our typically lowest participating regions is part of these high density population areas right here. And I'm not a dual credit expert. You all are. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's, you know, just an infrastructure, like these are huge places. It's an issue of getting kids to different areas. I've heard at least some anecdotes that seem to be corroborated in the data that AP is just more prevalent in these areas.
When you say right here, the people online don't know where you're talking about.
The Kipta, Bluegrass, and Northern Kentucky.
Yeah.
So the urban regions around Cincinnati, Lexington, and
Gateway is also kind of low.
yeah.
Gateway. I do have the percentages that if anybody is curious about it, but I can tell you this, that Big Sandy, Gateway, Bluegrass, and Kipta are the lowest in terms of percent of participating students. And they're all in the 30, you know. And then Lincoln Trail, Pennyrile, Barren River, Kentucky River, Green River, and Buffalo Trace in that order ascending are above the state average, you know, so we were at 46.7 on our dual credit attainment goal. So all of those regions are at or above the goal. And so I do think it's, whenever I'm out and about chatting with people, they frequently say, well, I know in big cities, people have lots of access. And in rural areas, we need to work on access. And this data is telling us kind of a different story about that. And I think in some ways it's to your point about, you know, some of it is online, some of it is the regional campuses that we have for KCTCS. But I just wondered if any of you all who are in more urban areas had any comments to make about that. I do think it's something for us to think about in terms of strategy moving forward in 2026, if we're trying to get to more of our students and open up access for ones who don't have it now.
And one thing to keep in mind, again, bear in mind the population density in those big three urban regions. But I looked at some point last year when we got data for the 2023 high school grad class. 50% of the graduates, so we're tracking for our goal, the proportion of graduates who took dual credit. In 23, 50% of the public high school graduates who didn't touch dual credit came from those three urban areas.
Did you compare that to how many of them have AP credits?
I did not, but I've been sort of been clued into that and can make that comparison now. That's one I'm really interested in.
So I don't know, Kara, and let's see, James lives up in or works up in the Northern Kentucky area. Any of you all want to comment on any of this?
I was gonna say, would you like to go first, James? Go ahead. I've talked already today. It's your turn.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I know one school up here that we work with that they provide us with maybe 2 dual credit students each semester. And the same is true for the other 2 institutions in the region. They don't provide them with, you know, they provide them with just about the same. And it's because they are exclusively AP. And a lot of schools up here still hold on to AP. I can name a few off the top of my head. So I think that's part of the reason why you see such low participation rates, at least in the Northern Kentucky region.
Northern Kentucky is 43.7. That's the percent participation.
I think to me, like, again, not an expert in this area, but just relying on data that I look at all the time. And even, well, in the dual credit space, like that college going likelihood bump, you know, it's magnified when students are either going to the campus or interacting with the college teacher. Maybe the college teachers come into their high school. I mean, it's that touch point with the college that where we see the magnification of that 20 percentage points I was talking about earlier. And I think that's huge in the story for us as advocates of dual credit. And that's one of the most universal findings in higher ed research, like people who like organizations or like, I keep pointing over here because I'm thinking about our Gear Up crew, which is right behind this wall. And their activities that they do, the most impactful things in terms of their college going rates and their college success are students who went on college visits for them, who had college experiences. It's a universal finding across literature that college touch points influence college matriculation likelihood and first year college success. I think that's the big story here when we're talking about dual credit versus AP. To me.
James had a hand up. I wanted to make a comment.
I'd also just add that, I mean, at least where I am, a lot of our schools are huge. Like they have huge graduating classes. And so what they prioritize as their needs to support their students on the high school level is different because, for example, I have a school that I work with that has 2 math teachers that could be credentialed for psychology. But we can't offer psychology because those those teachers are needed to teach all of the math classes that they need to satisfy the student population. So there are issues like that are kind of maybe more one-off, but still.
And I'll speak to what I know from working with JCPS.
Yeah.
And if Mary Louise Pulzarek was here, she'd speak.
I appreciate her involvement with all of us so
absolutely.
much. She
So-
is so engaged.
The struggles that they have in JCPS are the same struggles that we face at Jefferson. Food insecurity, transportation, attendance, because there's all these other external factors that impact student success in general. And so it is, when you do a deep dive, which I have done on JCPS's data, the schools that struggle with college matriculation, their college going rate, are struggling across the board with all kinds of other barriers. And so that's one of those things of, as a community, it is difficult to address those barriers for everyone. And it's just it's a struggle that is, you can try to provide opportunities for students, and at those schools, we have worked with 5 of our schools or actually 4 in our service area that we know have a lower college going rate, to try to recruit students to come to our Southwest campus through another scholarship process. We call it our Rotary program. We had 40 seats available. We only have 26 that filled this year, but we're transporting them with a bus to campus. But I'm telling you, some of those kids are coming to campus and skipping class, because it's also a culture problem with the students and their engagement that they've had thus far with education. And it's just like I said, it's a systemic problem in terms of how do you address those other barriers that are enduring barriers from the time that a student has started in education.
Yeah.
And another thing that I think is going on in some of these counties or areas is that those students may not be intending to go to a 4-year in Kentucky, and dual credit is not what they need then. That is why they're focusing on AP.
That is an issue.
Right, so particularly, I think if you're looking at Northern Kentucky, there's UC and there's Xavier and a lot of other schools that they can go to. I know my niece and nephew in Lexington, they didn't take dual credit because both of them intend to go out of state, and they went out of state, so they went AP. And so, I mean, I think there's multiple factors into some of these The thing I want to go back to on the other point that you made, though, our own internal study at KCTCS showed the same thing. If a student took a course on campus, they were more likely to matriculate. That is what the quantitative data tells us. But when we did our qualitative data study, attending a class at college versus not made no difference whatsoever on their decision on where to go afterwards. So I think we have to look at both sides of that coin.
And to speak to AP, I'll just add to that. Some of the high schools are creating an AP track or a dual credit track. And they're pushing more kids into the AP track because they believe that AP is more rigorous, it's more depth. And so that also creates structural issues with what are they allowing students to do in terms of their structure?
Well, and a fourth thing to add. I've heard from some communities that they're also worried about the implication it has on keys. Because if the college course dual credit is more rigorous, they may get a lower grade and that might impact their keys money. Well, but I've heard that as a reason.
I know, but we give them extra weight on those classes, the same as the AP.
But it factors into top 10, so valedictorian, salutatory, and I'm dealing with a lot of those
Yeah, a lot
issues
of
right
those.
now.
Angie's like saying amen over there.
And we do, I just kind of looked at our AP numbers and we have a good mixture. I told you those numbers earlier, 460 seats this semester, fall only. That's academic and technical, but we're also giving 506 AP exams this year. So we're a good mixture and, we encourage students to do both.
But with the growth of Advance in Kentucky, getting students into AP, they're also paying teachers for students who pass.
Kids are getting money.
And kids are getting money and districts are getting resources. So that is something that is playing.
Yeah, and we're fortunate too, because we have visiting instructors from WKU, Sky CTC. We have a regional campus right next door that we have about 40 students that go over every day to take classes. And then Sky CTC, one of their civic campuses is about 5-6 miles away, and we have kids that go over there to take classes. So we're very fortunate of where we are located.
Yeah.
And the resources that are nearby.
So I think it's important to remember, maybe I'm hearing you all say that the urban areas, it's not like a one reason why the enrollment might be lower, but there are lots of reasons that we probably should think about and dig into.
I think it'd be interesting too, on this AP conversation, if we could look at data from that.
Yeah.
If there is a way.
Chris,
I
can
don't
you
know if
make us
there's
a
way
map
to-
like this that shows AP?
And look, and I would say too, compare like,
These slides
if we know, if there's a way to look at how many students, if we have access, I don't know if you all have access to. How many students earned AP credit, how many credits did they earn? Did they also take dual credit? That's another where does that fit?
Yeah, those obviously come from KE, but through our sort of synergy and all our data coming together in KY Stats. I do have all this, but to give the correct credit is KE data that I have.
All right,
When will
it's
this
10:54.
study be ready? Soon?
It's good stuff.
All right, 10:54. I'm gonna give Chris just a couple of more minutes, just because I want to get your all's thoughts and ideas about 2026 before we head out. So let's okay.
This is kind of summarizing a lot of things that we've already talked about, but in terms of dual credit participation across subgroups, one thing that sticks out to me, these two statements are related to each other. So high population areas tend to have less participation, and you see that among underrepresented students in particular, and those two things are related to each other. If you want to get right down to it, all the underrepresented students in the state are in those three areas. 80-90% of them probably by race and ethnicity anyway. And we have under-resourced individuals. We do focus on the income, not low income story, and Eastern Kentucky is obviously where folks' minds go immediately, but we do have students in urban areas that are dealing with the exact same problems. So just something to keep in mind. I think those two things are very related to each other. But that's all I've got. I do have an 11. But earlier I meant what I said, I love this stuff. I know and appreciate a lot of the work that folks are doing in this room. Let's work on it together. If you got data questions or whatever, snide remarks, email me. I love this stuff, so please do it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris.
Great data.
Appreciate you. Yeah, it's nice to work with a cheerleader for dual credit like Chris.
Thank you all.
Thank you. He puts numbers behind a lot of what I feel in my heart and sort of know in my soul that it's true. All right. So any just final quick comments about what we've seen here? Okay. Well, I think that the data presentation kind of leans into this conversation, this quick conversation I want to have just very briefly about priorities for 2026 and where we would like to see the advisory council kind of lean into. I had 3 ideas about some things that are of top of mind for me moving into 2026. One obviously is about our attainment goal. Reaching our attainment goal, I don't think is going to be a problem. I think we're going to soar past our attainment goal in record time. What I am concerned about is some of the access issues that are kind of embedded under our attainment goal. I really am, I think from every angle, when you think about from a return on investment angle, in terms of how do we get more students taking dual credit who otherwise would not go to college? That is beneficial for our institutions if they are tapping into new students. It's beneficial to those students in all the ways we've talked about today. It's beneficial to our workforce to have a more skilled up, citizenship here in citizenry here in Kentucky. So I think we should look at the attainment goal and really think strategically about, okay, even if we hit the 50%, what do we want that to look like? And how can it continue to have the kind of positive impacts that we want to see? And I think for our advisory council, we always want to keep students at the center and the benefits to students, but we also, from this council, want to be thinking about how is this beneficial to our high schools and how is it beneficial to our institutions? All of the partners who are in the ecosystem, we want to make sure of that. So that's one thing that I think we could continue to focus on. Another thing that I'd like to see this advisory council give advice about is professional development. We've talked several times over this past year about ways in which CPE and other partners can engage with better professional development around maybe advising for K-12 partners, maybe about systems. And, we've talked a lot about online learning today. How can we ensure that the professors who are teaching courses online are doing that in a way that's really meaningful and helpful to students? I don't think it's about, do we want to eliminate, at least from my perspective, we don't want to eliminate online learning. We want to make online learning better and more impactful and, the outcomes strong for students who take that. So professional development, how can we think about building a professional development kind of system around dual credit that is beneficial to all of the partners who are in this system? And what topics do they need and when do they need that? And then finally, the last one that I had on my mind was about teacher credentialing. I think our state has to acknowledge that we don't have enough credentialed teachers for the demand that we have in dual credit. We do need to know more about that. The admissions redesign set that as a priority, but I don't know if we'll have funding to have them do that. But how can we figure out, and then how can we address the needs that we have, figure out what they are, and then how to address those. In terms of the attainment goal and the teacher credentialing question, you all have heard me say probably that in my ideal world, every high school in Kentucky would offer at least English and math as dual credit. Those are like the low hanging fruit that we would want every student to be able to have access to those courses. The problem is we don't have enough teachers in Kentucky to do that. So what would be our minimum wish list, and how do we need to skill up and get ready to offer those kinds of things. So I'm gonna stop talking now and ask you, what, ideas do you have for 2026 and where our council might go?
I've got two ideas if nobody else wants to jump on it.
Yeah.
And we can hash this out later, but I really think we need to have a larger conversation about funding advisors. We can't do it on the back of the current high school counselors.
Yes.
And we don't have the capacity to do it adequately. And I think, you know, if you were in the panel with us on Monday, so much of what's falling through the gap, or really the missing pillar, is dedicated dual credit advising. So that's one thing. The other thing I think we should try to tackle is the policy misalignment between secondary and post-secondary.
Wow, you're dreaming big.
I
mean,
am.
you think
I'm just-
you're just
I'm
gonna be
putting
a variable
you
here.
might not wanna go on this
I
ride
did
with me, but
ask. Yeah. Well, I have had a preliminary conversation with KDE about, they have a rolling, what do they call their committees that sort of align courses and standards. And so every year they convene experts. John, you can probably speak to this a little better than I can, but convene experts across the state in different disciplines. And to have secondary representation, maybe from this council or from some of our work groups on those, to meet with those committees, so that there's at least better understanding, moving toward alignment of those. So we've had an initial conversation about how do we open this can of worms, Harmony? So maybe we need to dig a little deeper in that. And John, do you want to say something?
No. No, I think you pretty well covered it. The issue is, again, policy misalignment and getting these committees together and getting post-secondary and secondary to talk to one another.
I think the gen ed conversation is a bigger one for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. How do we create pathways that are clear and meaningful to students, so that it is, if a student's taking English at KCTCS, they know they don't need to take it at Moorhead. If they're taking math at Thomas More, they know that they don't need to take it. So I think that is a bigger conversation, like I see maybe work in that space in 2026.
Yeah, and I think that is also very related to professional development, because I think a lot of our K-12 partners
And advising.
don't understand, and advising,
That's
yeah,
right.
all of
They
this
all
is
go
very.
together.
I mean, but that's, I think so important, because I mean, even if we're in the schools, we can't advise for the other 6 schools that the high school is also working with, right? That's why the person who's at the school needs to know all the options available to the kid. And then you add AP into the conversation or something else. I mean, it's just, their post-secondary advisors need to be funded.
I do not disagree. Okay, anybody else online or in the room have ideas? Okay, well, 11:04. Not too bad. You all, that January 15th is a work session. We have that at 9 here we'll do that here in person at CPE if you're able to come. And just want to reemphasize that if you travel to CPE, we're happy to reimburse your travel costs for being here. And then I think everybody has all of the remaining work sessions and quarterly meetings on your calendars. So I'll double check that, make sure everybody has those times reserved. We do have leftover Panera from yesterday's CEC meeting that's here in I'll give you all some virtual salad if you want that. But anybody who's here in person, you're welcome to stick around and have some leftover salad, which is in our break room.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks everybody for a great conversation today. And I feel like we're making progress on the gen ed thing, and we'll get there. We'll get there. I appreciate your all's collaboration and your expert advice on this issue.
After so many years of talking about it, it's great to see that we're making progress.
Yeah. All right.